Hello, new Trade Ideas users. This is Steve Gomez, user number 3, along with Andy Lindloff, user number 40. Hello, Andy.
Hey Steve, how's it going?
Good, good. So the purpose of this video that we're putting together here is to go up on YouTube for new users to really kind of unbox and get a fresh, easy start with Trade Ideas. And let's just start right here, everybody. What I've done is, assuming that you've downloaded the TI icon onto your desktop and you've double-clicked and launched it and logged in, this is the very first screen that you're going to notice. Now, I will make a caveat that if anybody has a launch that basically has nothing but this window right here in a very small condensed mode, first thing you need to do is locate it up in the upper left-hand corner and expand it. And what that does is gives you access to the entire menu. It gives you access to the green ball that shows you are connected. Here's a great trick, everybody. You click on account and it will tell you if there's a reason you're not connected, if it's a bad password or a bad username, or if somebody else has logged on for you. So this is the basic opening of the box of Trade Ideas platform. Now, what we're on essentially here is what's called a channel bar. Now, what we're going to do here, Andy and myself here for the next hours, we're going to, basically do kind of a mock training session to give you guys a head start until you actually get your real one-on-one training session. So hopefully this will open a few eyes, answer a few questions, and get a few basics out of the way. So once again, and Andy's of course going to play the role of the user, but will interrupt me at any time he sees appropriate to make a point. That's going to be the best way to get you guys the information. So if you'll notice, the on button here is selected to social media. When you log into Trade Ideas for your very first time, you're basically dumped into the social media channel. Now these channels are kind of like surfing a Netflix channel, and they all have a different theme. Alpha Predator is one that's for fast-moving stocks in the morning. I'm sorry, I'm on pre-market actually. Alpha Predator is right here. This one is for fast-moving, low float type scalps. We also have the Holli channel, which I believe a lot of people are going to want to spend some time on if you've got the premium. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by looking at Trade Ideas using the Holli channel AI. If you do not have the Holli channel AI, you could start with anything similar such as social media. It doesn't really matter. But we're going to use this as an example to start with the AI Holli channel. Now, you'll notice...
Steve, and also, I want to throw this out, that even with the people that I do sessions with that do not have the Holli AI, I think this is a great template to use to build your default layout on, and we're going to show you how to do that. And one thing I just wanted to reiterate what Steve said. We're seeing massive growth with our product, and our trainers, myself, Steve, and Jamie, we're doing all we can do. So the waiting list may be 3 weeks and then some. So we're putting together this webinar. It is basically going to be very much similar to what you would experience, had you just gotten the product and you had a one-on-one session with us. So we just want to make sure that you guys know that you still get your one-on-one webinar, but this will allow you to really gain the elementary, I shouldn't call it elementary because it is a very powerful tool, but anyway, gain a lot of knowledge so that when you do come into the webinar, the one-on-one session, we can even talk about more advanced theories and even trading. So sorry, Steve.
Sure. So you'll notice that there's still some blank space here that we can add to. So the channel selection gives us a little bit of information, but we can customize this going forward. And one of the things I'm going to recommend to do here is the AI window has 2 duplicate windows. This is set for closed positions, and this one's set for open positions. But we can toggle back and forth and have the same window. So what I'm going to do right off the bat is I'm going to close that. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I'm doing that just to make some more space because I can always go back and I can monitor the AI open positions with this simple drop-down menu here. I'll go ahead and move this guy up here. You'll notice that these are all free-floating windows. And one of the first things I want to call to your attention, if you're having issues of windows popping up over multiple screens, here is a quick, handy hack for you. Under the Tools and Options, we have a layout function, and checking loading layouts open relative to main window, this would be checked. I would recommend keeping that checked. What that's going to do is that's going to make sure that when you open up a new window, it opens it relative to this particular toolbar window. So that is a good workout for you for sure. But let's talk a little bit more about, what we're seeing here with the AI and what we're seeing here with some of these charts. You'll notice that if we double click any open position, whether it's an AI or an alert, which we will build, we have our charts changing. And we have this single stock window changing as well. The single stock window gives us wonderful data points based on average daily volume, short float, shorts, stocks in the float and things like that. But if you'll notice, those are all defaulted to link to these two charts, which let's talk about here. The TKR chart has a D, which stands for daily, and the 5 stands for 5 minute. If you wanted to right click and change the time frame, it'd be very simple to do, to take from a 5 minute to a 15 minute as such. Now, of course, these are customizable. So if you're looking for maybe some bigger charts, not a problem to just go ahead and keep these proportioned to where you would like. One more note on the charts is if you hold down the control key and use your mouse wheel, that's going to give you the ability to use the zooming in and zooming out function. Now the charts also have a different theme under properties. You can select dark theme, and then you'll have some dark charts versus the white theme charts. Most of the people seem to prefer the white theme charts, so we'll keep them as such. The purple and blue lines you see there, those are aftermarket lines, and in properties we can turn off and on show pre-market or show post-market. I prefer to turn those off. And that is the way we'll do that. This third chart right here can be a great way, if you'll notice. I will right click it, and under properties, symbol linking is not checked. However, symbol linking is checked on our other charts. So that's why when we double click, these two charts are changing along with my single stock window, but this one up here is monitoring the SPY. So if you're inclined to have one static chart that doesn't evolve with the rest, you can just turn off symbol linking. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to close this chart, and we're going to even close this guy right here, because we're going to spend a little bit of time showing you how we're morphing the opening channel into something that's customizable and interesting to you. So here's what
Hey,
we're going to... Yeah, go ahead.
Getting back to the charts, I did notice crosshairs. Any way to get crosshairs on there?
Oh, yeah, good question. Thank you. That's the reason you're here, Andy. Crosshairs is going to be under properties. A lot of our chart actions are going to be under properties, and you'll notice crosshairs were off. Now they are on, and we can turn them on the second chart as well. However, that brings up a great point, which sometimes we'll come through here and we'll mark up, right click and say, give me a horizontal line, just for some reference there. However, that line is not really able to be moved. It's trying to grab it, but it can't. So the simple workaround is to turn your crosshairs off, and now you have access to grabbing trend lines, horizontal lines, and any annotations you want. Then you can turn your crosshairs back on. So good question from Andy. Thank you. These are some of the more common questions that do come up. So here's what I want to do now. I basically deleted a couple of windows that I'm not interested in. I'm kind of reshaping some of the Holli trades here. I like to have maybe a little bit more options. I can right click and we can go to columns, and there are many columns that we can add to the Holli, basically grabbing it and sending it over to the left-hand side. So there's more data points that you can add there. So what I want to do now here is let's kind of lock this into place. Essentially, we want to get off of the channel bars, and we want to use our program from our own custom default layout. So let's do this. Even though we're on the Holli channel, we've made a couple of changes and then just a basic start. We're going to go up here now. We're going to now classify this as our default layout. So we're going to save layout, and you'll notice right here, default layout. Please just double click that and confirm that you now want this to be your default layout. Now we can start doing some interesting things. For instance, we can go to another channel. For instance, Alpha Predator might be interesting. Now you'll notice we just left everything that we were looking at, Holli, and everything that we saved as our default layout. That's okay because we saved it. But let's say we really like this Alpha Predator. This is a popular scan. Now, we could use it here on this channel, but the problem is we cannot configure it or make any changes. And trust me, we're going to get into configuration here shortly, real in depth. But let's say I just want to use or steal, for lack of a better word, this particular scan. I'm going to go right here. I'm going to click Save to Cloud and save. And now what we're going to do is we're going to migrate back to our default layout. Load layout, default layout, and there, doesn't that look familiar? That's exactly the way we left it. So here's where we start to build our own custom layouts. Essentially, we go back to File, Load from Cloud, and you'll notice the first thing that comes up is Alpha Predator. So we highlight Alpha Predator and click Load, and wouldn't you know it, we now have a working copy of something that we can use going forward. And not only that, we can use it to make any configuration changes that we might want, any color changes, any row changes. It's now our copy, because when you work with this during the channel bar, it stays static for everybody. So let's take a look at this. This is called a T window. T window stands for top list. And it's kind of like an active spreadsheet where I can come in here and I can double click on earnings date to see whose earnings are coming up the quickest. Or maybe I can double click on float and see who has the smallest float. This guy here at 6 million shares. Or maybe the change from yesterday. But you get the idea. The top list window is a very interactive kind of a spreadsheet and can bring the data up to the top that we want to see based on the columns. Now you'll notice the T windows, they're going to update every 30 seconds. So every 30 seconds, the filter set that we have in here, there we go, we just had an update, is either going to drop off or move around or shuffle depending upon how we're sorting. Did you have a question? User
Yeah,
Andy?
well, I'm a little confused about the top list. Are these alerts are in real time? What's going on here? I mean.
Well, that's the number one alert that we have is our T window, but we also have something called an A window, which is an alert. Now, we could go to any one of these channels and find an A window that might be something of interest, but what I thought I would do is spend the time to build a brand new A window, and that gives us the ability to talk about the difference of what an A window is. So please notice, and we're going to go up here and build something from scratch, new alert window. And what this does is this opens up the configuration window. Now, chances are, as a new user, your configuration window is going to look a little bit like this with a button that says Advanced. Just click that Advanced button one time, open it up, and then you'll be able to lock it in with this button right here, and you only have to do that one time. Now we're going to spend some time on configuration. Now, what's different from an alert configuration versus a T window configuration? Well, there's pretty much one basic difference. The alert windows have to have what we call an event. In this case, the alert is going to be, or the event, I should say, is going to be a new high. However, if we back up one tab here, we've got a pretty good library to show you. Anything here that's red or green is essentially an algorithm that Trade Ideas has created. And that algorithm can also be referred to as event. And once this event fires, that is the actual event that's going to trigger the alert. And these A window alerts, they will come up in real time, and they'll give us a price stamp and a time stamp in real time. But as you peruse through here, you might notice some interesting things. For instance, like, what is a check mark? I've never heard of that. Well, this is a great example for us to show you. Highlight the algorithm or the event in question and click the Help button. And when you do that, that's going to bring you into our extensive documentation page. As you can see, checkmark here was loaded directly as you asked, but this thing is going to show you every alert, every filter, everything that we have is going to give you a great documentation explanation, and the easiest way to do so is to highlight and then just ask about help. Now, as I continue lower, you see there are even more events and more events. Then we get down to these purple and blue colors. These are the filter sets. So the A window, we're going to have to choose not only an event or an algorithm, but we're going to dig deeply into these filter sets here as well. Now, one of the things I like to tell people is we just went through a lot of items there, and I understand that. An easy way to drill down to something that you're interested in might be to have this conversation using the search term. You could say, all right, Trade Ideas, I really like to use RSI. What do you have to offer in terms of RSI? And there you go. We've got a daily RSI filter and then intraday RSI filters. But what if you're somebody who wants to play around with something that has to do with gaps? Well, you might notice here, not only do we have filters for gaps in dollar amounts and percentage amounts, but we also have some algorithms that will trigger an event that use gaps. Maybe you're somebody who's interested in Bollinger Bands. Maybe you're somebody who's interested in standard deviations. So we can go on and on, MACD, et cetera, et cetera. We've got a lot of items. So the best way to do what you're looking for, find what you're looking for, is to drill down using this search term. So we're going to build a real basic alert, and we have to select our event. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the first and the most obvious, widely used. It's called a new high. So let's select that and click Add Alert. Now you'll notice we're on the Alert tab. New high is selected. And we do have this window over here, which is worth mentioning. If you were looking
Hey, Steve?
for... Yep.
Yes, I was following along with you over here, but I already have like filters and everything already set in mind. Is there any way for me to get rid of those?
Yeah, you can start from scratch.
Oh, okay.
So double click
there you
Start
go.
from scratch. And that basically, because what happens is Trade Ideas will leave filters in from last settings, last configurations, and it assumes that those are filters that you like to use. So we'll go ahead and start from scratch, and you'll see it does give us a basic filter set here, and our alert window is unchecked, so we're going to go ahead and recheck new high. All right, so we're starting from scratch. Now, if I wanted to scan for something that was more of a longer term trade, like a 5-day high or a 10-day high, this is where I would enter, say, 10. So my alert of new high has now become, in fact, a new 10-day high. But we're not going to do that, but that's available for those who are looking for longer term type ideas. The new high is going to basically satisfy what we've got running for today's intraday type highs and things like that. All right, so we've satisfied our alerts. Now we've got a lot of work to do here on our filters, and this is where it really gets interesting, and this is where we talk to the Trade Ideas servers to let them know what we're looking for. The first and the most obvious filter is always price. What do you want your price to be? Well, you'll notice minimums on the left, maximums on the right, and this particular one we are going to express in dollars. Well, a lot of people don't like to trade stocks under $5, so we can do that. We can put a minimum value of 5 in there, and maybe they don't want to trade stocks over 100. So here's our first scan. We're only looking for stocks making new highs between $5 and $10. Now I want to highlight the second of our help features to you all, and it's these show me buttons in between. Once you've entered some data, if I click show me, the server is going to read back and say, my understanding is that you want the price to be between $5 and $100. That's correct, so we're good there. But it's a good habit to get into. I call it checking your work. All right, there's something else on here, well, that's not on here that we really, really need, and that's going to be average daily volume. Average daily volume is the most commonly used filter to keep out the noise, to keep out the stocks that only do 10,000 shares a day, things that we don't want to see, that they're too illiquid. But you'll notice it's not on here, so this is the beginning of the drill. We got to go back and find what we need. So let's go to search, and we can actually just abbreviate average VOL. And essentially, we've got our 3 options, a 5-day trailing, 10-day trailing, and 3-month trailing moving average. Let's go ahead and grab a daily 10-day trailing moving average and add that filter. And the minimum category is what we're going to want to do here. So we could put in something like 300,000 shares. And it's always good to check our work to make sure its comma is correct, and we are good. So now we've got our average daily volume and our price alert. Our price margin, we should say. Let's get a little bit deeper into what we're looking for. Well, if we're looking for stocks making new highs on the day, chances are we might want to see these stocks that are only already up on the day. In other words, they're not down $5 and trying to make new highs. Let's scan for things relative to the change from the close yesterday, which is a percentile. So what we can do is do 0.01, and essentially if we check our work, it's saying, well, the price was up at least 0.01% from the previous close. So we're using the most minimum positive amount we can to guarantee that everything coming through our alert here is not going to be negative on the day. It's going to be positive net changed on the day. So that's a good one to use if you're wanting to scan relative to yesterday. Now, here's a great place to stop and explain to you what Trade Ideas does with about 8,000 U.S. equities in the U.S. markets. It's building a database on each one of those symbols, and in that database there are many data points. For instance, what's the average true range? What's the average 5-minute volume? What's the average volatility? What's the average volume for a certain amount of period, as I said? What's the average Bollinger Bands? Anything that we can quantify and create a baseline average for, you can bet the Trade Ideas has it. So that dovetails into relative volume here. Relative volume, and what relative means is time of day. So if it's 12 noon on, East Coast time, and stock XYZ normally does 300,000 shares by 12 noon East Coast time, that's going to be a value of 1, or a run rate of 1, as I call it. Now, if stock XYZ was doing 600,000 shares at 12 noon East Coast time, that's going to be a value of 2. So this number can change throughout the day as the run rate and the interest and the volume rushes in or rushes out. And what we're trying to do is make sure that we're scanning for stocks that are at least doing normal volume. Now you can scan for a minimum relative volume of 2, but I'm going to tell you right now, you might miss a lot of things that you normally could want to see. So something we could do would say, let's put a 1 value so we have minimum normal volume for this time of day, and maybe add 0.3. So 1.3 is just another way of saying this stock is doing 30% more volume than it normally does for this time of day. That's our relative volume. So that's a great filter to use, and it's going to change throughout the day. We would always like to see things doing at least 1.0 or higher, and you will see things in the news doing things that are extraordinarily high. But for our intents and purposes, we at least want to see normal volume plus a little bit more. Volume in 5 minutes. This again goes to what I was saying earlier. Trade Ideas database knows what every single symbol should be doing for a 5-minute candle in terms of volume. Now, however, this one is expressed in percentile. So 100% is going to equal normal 5-minute candle volume. And a lot of times you're going to see stocks go to sleep where you look up and it's only doing 17% of normal volume. But let's think about this. For our intents and purposes, in our case, this is a stock making a new high. So we might want to actually see a bit more intent and volume in the last 5 minutes for stocks making highs, especially stocks trying to break out. So I like to use a value of 200% sometimes. And we're actually going to scan for this and make this the minimum scan. I'll show you a little bit later. Up here in the single stock window, we can actually add the volume 5-minute value. So no matter what symbol we click on, we can quickly look up and see what its 5-minute volume is. I highly recommend doing that, and we might even get to that later in the episode here. But this is a metric that we really like to monitor. If a stock's getting ready to break out of a new high and it's only doing 17% of 5-minute volume, you may want to back away. But if you happen to look at it and it's doing 400% of normal 5-minute volume, that's going to give us more confidence that this stock wants to go through highs. So for now, we'll just keep the scan set at a minimum of 200 so we only see the things that are in motion. Now, what we've done here is a couple of real simple basic scans that are relative to today or yesterday's close or relative to what the volume is doing today. Let me just give you one more idea to think in the bigger picture. If we go back to search and I type in 50 moving average, well, we have this, well, not only do we have an algorithm that shows you when we cross above the 50-day moving average, which could be the event that would trigger this alert, but I'm going to use the percentile change from 50-day moving average. And what this is doing is it's giving me a way to kind of look at the bigger picture on the daily chart, and a lot of people like to consider the 50-day moving average as kind of a simple rule of thumb. Are you above the 50 or below the 50? Well, stocks above the 50 are usually doing okay, so I want to scan for that. So all I would do was simply what I did above, 0.01% above that level. So change from 50-day moving average, the minimum has to be above by 0.01%. Check our work, and there it is. Our price is at least 0.1% above the 50-day moving average. So I did that as an example to show you all that we have bigger picture filters too. It's not just all today. Does that
Hey
make
Steve,
sense, Andy? Yep.
yeah, it does. Now I want to ask you if this has a capability, because what I like to do is I like to catch stocks a lot of times before they break out. I mean, a lot of times I'll get these alerts and I look up and it's already gone. Is there a way, say like before it hits a 20-day high, is there any
Mm-hmm.
way that it can kind of point me to something that may be about to break out of a 20-day high or something like that?
Yeah, what Andy's talking about is a good dovetail of what I was talking about in terms of filters for the bigger picture. So we have a filter called position and range. I'm just going to type in position and range, and that's going to basically drill into every time frame we have. So you can see we have position in lifetime range, position in a 52-week range, position in 20-day, 10-day, 5-day, and then some intraday stuff here as well. So what Andy's saying is, what if I want to find out a stock that's getting ready to just break out before a new 20-day high? How could we be alerted to that before it does break out of a 20-day high? Now, as you'll recall, when I was back here, I said, here's what we could do. We could say, well, we could put a 10-day high, but this alert isn't going to come out until it makes that actual 10-day high. Well, why don't we be a little bit sneaky and do something different? Let's keep that field blank, but let's go back and select 10-day high. Okay, position in 10-day range. We're going to add that filter. And now what we're doing is we're saying a 10-day range has a low and a high. So the 0 is going to be the price of the 10-day low, and a 100 percentile would be the price of a 10-day high. So what we can do is push that value up and say, show me things that are at 98 or even 99%. In other words, one tick, 1% away from making a new 10-day high. So that's an actual filter that you can add right there to satisfy what Andy was saying. Hey, how can I see something before it breaks out and not be late to the party? Well, on these particular positions and ranges, if you want to use the right time frame, we have the ability to show you. So let's do this. Let's turn off the 50-day moving average, and we'll just keep this one on, position in 10-day range, and maybe we'll even dial it back a little bit to 97% so we can get an even earlier look. All right, so here's what we're scanning for, guys. Just a quick rehash. Stocks making new highs during the day. They have to be above yesterday's close. The relative volume is 30% more than normal for this time of day. In our last 5-minute volume candle, we've done twice the amount of volume as a minimum, hopefully higher. Our price that we're filtering for is between 5 and 100. The average 10-day volume on these stocks are all going to average at least 300,000, and it's only going to show us new highs when we are very close to breaking out of a 10-day range, but not quite there. So let's see what we get. The remaining tabs here are the exchanges. There's not much to do there. Just leave those 4 checked. Those are our main 4 U.S. markets to make sure that we're scanning all 8,000 stocks. Symbol list. This is a simple way that you can create a handful of symbols to only point this alert towards. Some people might want to do that with a certain list of special stocks they have. In my case, I've got one where I've got 30 ETFs where I have an alert where I'm only pointing towards ETFs. So that's how we would turn that particular list on, but we're not doing that. We're going to keep this on all symbols. Columns, well, this is where we can decide what we do and don't want to see. Right now it's just showing us time and symbol and type. Description's not always the best thing. We can get rid of this if we don't want to and save space. But we do want to see volume today. We definitely want to see relative volume. We would love to see position in 10-day range, the one we were just talking about. We would love to see what the average 10-day volume is. And we've got the price in there.
And probably 5-minute volume, I would
5-minute
think.
volume. We definitely want 5-minute volume. So here is going to be what we're going to finally wind up with on this side. So
Well, let me ask you something, Steve. I
yep.
like to follow float. How can I get float in there? I don't see it in there anywhere.
Yeah, we don't have it scanned for, but we can go find it certainly. We don't have to put a scan in there. So,
But can't you?
yeah,
Go ahead.
back
I was
to
going to see if you could search for. Okay.
back to the handy dandy search. Float, and there it is, float in shares. Now these are our choices. We can add the filter, which means we might want to add a value to it, but we don't want to add a value to it. We're just going to show the column. So we just bypass that and click show column, and look, here it is. Now float is now showing up as one of our columns. Good question. Summary is where we can give it a name. So new highs, close to 10-day breakout is probably a good way to look at it. And here's our summary, new high, and here's all of our filters that we've gone through in sentence form. So once we click that, we now have an alert that is in real time. It is 11:55 local time. Looks like this one just came out recently. So BWP, let's double click on it and show you a couple things. Well, my 15-minute chart, actually, I'm going to reverse these guys because this is my preference. I like to have my daily on the left, like reading from left to right. So let's try again. Double clicking BWP gives me a 15-minute chart arrow right here that shows me this was the most recent candle that came through. And then of course this is our daily chart over here. Well, we're in real time right now, and this is the only one that's come out at the moment. Let's take a look. This one's got 250 in the float. Where's my 5-minute volume? Ah, here we go, 248. This is good. This thing is on a high tick as we speak, and the volume at 5-minute is doing very well. If this was 24%, I probably wouldn't be so bullish or excited about this stock continuing to make a new high from here. Now you'll notice we can right-click and go back to configure and change anything we want, or we can right-click and go to history. It's defaulted to real time, but let's say we want to see everything that came out today. Well, we right-click and do history today. Now we're going to go back and see basically everything that's been coming out from this morning. What's this ALKS? This thing looks like it started to come out a lot this morning. And it was coming out making highs, and now it's a different type of animal, it looks like. What was the BBRY? This thing was coming out making highs again earlier with the blue tag. So doing this on the weekends or the evenings and scrolling back in time gives you all the ability to kind of see what's going on with the alerts. Here, this one's 10 minutes after the open. Looked like it had a pretty decent hit on this candle. So this is the alert window. I'm going to go back to real time. All right, we're going to rehash this real quick. Alert window is A, happens in real time. We get our timestamp and we get our price stamp. But we have to have what we call an event. In this case, the event is a new high. These come out in real time. The top lists, these are going to refresh every 30 seconds, and we can double click and sort the columns that we want to see. That's the major difference between the two. Anything that I should pick up on here before I move forward, Andy, and your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely got very well done on the alert. I'm still a little bit confused on the top list. So you're telling me top lists are basically all filters and any stock on the 4 major exchanges that satisfies those filters are going to appear in the top list?
Correct. You'll notice that in my configuration here, we have nothing but filters loaded. Even if I go to search, there's no events, there's no algorithms as available. So we're basically limited to just using the filters, and it's an all or none situation. So in the last 30 seconds, these 5 stocks, no one just jumped in here, so VMY just popped up. And it popped up to the top because we were sorting based on, I guess, symbol. So every 30 seconds, a stock, if it satisfies all these filters, which in this case, stock is the price of at least 50 cents, the volume today is at least this, the volume in the last 5 minutes we've talked about is 250% of normal. That's very familiar to us. Got it. And it's basically showing us stocks that are up on many different time frames, previous close, last 5 days, last 5 minutes. So these are all filters that are being satisfied. Now, as I close that out, at the moment, we only have 2 that are available. Now, this probably is a great segue into bringing in something that, that we use from the cloud. Now, the cloud is a way in which we can load.
Can I ask one more question, Steve, before we get off Alpha Predator? Because you were showing me how to look at history on the A window. Is there any way to look at history on the T window?
Yeah, the history on the T windows are a little different. We basically can't go back through and say, show me everything today. It's essentially a 5-minute time window. So if I have to use historical data, if we wanted to see what the Alpha Predator was doing at the close of yesterday, we would go to our calendar, pop in the 30th of March, and on my West Coast time here, 12:55 p.m. is going to be the last 5-minute segment. So if we just click OK, all of a sudden this is now showing me a history of what these filters and these stocks looked like yesterday at the close. All right.
Okay.
So
I was noticing when you're looking at time frame, it says live during market hours, and then you had it set on there. Why do you have it set on live during market hours versus live always?
I don't know. That may have been the way it was set, but the question is a good one because it's a nuance. Live during market hours means from bell to bell. Keeping it on live always is actually going to start keeping track of things pre-market and post-market. Am I correct about that as far as you know?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, because I think if you're doing market scanning in the evening, it would close. It would stocks and symbols would freeze in your window after the close versus how they closed on the day, right? If it's live during market hours.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So keep it on live always. That's probably
no live during market hours. I would think if you want to do scanning in the after hours. It's a matter of preference. That's just the way I think I would like it. But yeah.
Okay.
It's a matter of preference. You're right.
All right. So before I go to the cloud, one of the main ways that the top list windows are used, and let me bring up one of mine. Actually, I don't have one of mine just yet. I'll bring it from the cloud. So I'm going to load from the cloud. So this is a whole new chapter, guys. We share settings with each other. We use in webinars, we can share settings in webinars, and you can also grab the settings from these channel bars or directly from Barry's room. Now I've got one that's an interesting alert called Squeeze Me, and it's a top list, and it's a popular one, and I'm going to load it. Now what I'm doing here is I'm essentially scanning for stocks that have at least 25% short the float. Let me show you just a little bit of a trick here so you can kind of once again get a feel for how we might use some of these bigger pictures. So 25% is the minimum short float. 300,000 is the average volume. I'm going to click OK again, and now you're going to notice we have a lot of stocks in here now. Basically, I'm not filtering for much. I'm filtering for just about every single stock out there that does decent volume but has 25% short the float or higher. And next to that column, I actually have the size of the float. But there's a lot of these stocks that, for instance, that one's kind of just doing nothing. That one's, in a downtrend. How do I find the ones that might be more interesting? Well, if we're a short seller, the last thing we want to do is be stuck in a stock that's going to a 52-week high. So what if we use this to try and find the short sellers who are in pain? That's going to be step number one. So all I'm going to do is turn on that position and range again. So we'll go back to configure. And position and range is already in there. It's a position in 52-week range to be specific. Position in 1-year range. Let's find out with a 95% minimum which stocks out of all these guys are short heavily but getting ready to pop above a 52-week range. And now we've got a nice short list. So that's step number one, using our top list. Once again, I'm sorting by the percent of the float. And I'm also looking for stocks that might have a very short float. This ASPS is kind of interesting. It's got 75% but only 18 million in the shares. Well, as I look at the chart here, it's had a pretty good run and it might be getting ready to pull back. What I want to do is I want to find something of interest, and I'm going to go ahead and use this one right here. This is a stock, TrueCar, which is actually traded as trade of the week because of the short squeeze. It's still got 40% short, and it's continuing to move higher. These two areas right here, this is another 52-week high. Now I'm going to demonstrate a new tool that you all have available to you under Premium, which is called Price Alerts. How do we find out when these stocks of interest that we're looking at through the day become in play? Right now I'm not really interested in this stock being in play, but I'll tell you what, if this stock that has 44% short interest goes back to a new 52-week high, there could be some more short covering and some more new highs above that. So I'm going to right click basically right at that level, and in the right click of the chart you'll see Create Price Alert. This allows me to give myself notes. New 52-week high, 44% short float. That's something that's very interesting to me. If this goes off in real time when the market's going, I know exactly why I set this alert. I click save, and now you'll notice there's a dashed red line up here. Now, if the price alert ever does trade back above that price next week, tomorrow, next day, next month, doesn't matter when, I'm going to get an alert that's going to pop up real quickly called a price alert, which looks like this. This is my actual working price alert at the moment. And the thing that's neat about this is that you can use this as, it's slowly filling in by the way, you can use this as a great teaching tool. You can see the stocks that have triggered, and are they creating a value of profit and loss, or are they creating losses? And so it gives you a good feedback mechanism as to where you're setting your alerts and if they're working or not. And then down here, these are all the ones that are working that are in white. You'll notice true is on the bottom. Here's my notes. If at any time true goes off, I'm going to hear an audible alert, and that window is going to pop up, and I immediately have a trade opportunity that I selected way before the opportunity even came to us. So the purpose of me showing you that was one of the ways in which we like to use our T windows, our top list windows, is to keep track of stocks that are doing interesting things. And if we find something interesting at any time, we can go back and right-click and create price alerts to make sure that we never miss anything that we didn't want to miss.
Oh, very good. Yeah, and guys, that I can't tell you those position and range. I mean, if you can picture a chart in your head, you can pretty much create a top list or an alert, whatever you're doing. And with just about anything you can picture in your head, with all the position and ranges, you'll find yourself, you know, gravitating more and more to those because they're incredible. How you can use them in your favor to catching, like Steve showed you, and like we showed you earlier, stocks potentially about ready to break out of a range. They're incredible.
Now we have another tool that's also available to you, and the tool is called the Backtester. We'll just spend a couple moments on it, but the backtesting tool can only be used in an A window. If you think about it, the A window gives us a timestamp and a price stamp. Well, those are the two data points that we need, the backtester needs, and ultimately Holli, the AI, is going to need to configure some strategies. We cannot backtest top lists. Top lists are a little bit more slow-moving and just more for giving us up-to-date information that we're looking for to take action or future action. But if we want to build an alert that's giving us timestamps and price stamps, just as we did a minute ago, this is the alert we did a minute ago, well, we could come in and ask this alert, how could we expect this to do in the future based off of past performance? Right-clicking and backtest strategy will open up our backtesting module, which looks like this. And we've got a few tabs to go through, and we'll quickly go through these before we run it. The first tab is, when do you want to sample this trade? You'll notice these times are set to my local time. Let's just go ahead and start at maybe 7 o'clock, which would be 10 o'clock Eastern, and let's stop sampling maybe at 12 o'clock, which is 3 o'clock Eastern. That'll be our sample time. Second tab, how long do we want to hold this trade? Well, we're looking for new highs on the day. We could try and hold it for maybe 60 minutes or longer, but in this case, we'll just do an arbitrary 60 minutes. If we wanted to hold till the end of the day, we could click this. If we wanted to hold for multiple days, we could say at the market open, a day after tomorrow, etc., etc. There's many different options, but for our case, let's see how well a 60-minute scalp does on this alert that we just created. So time of entry, time to exit, risk management. I recommend using risk management in your back testing, something similar. Go to a percent mode, enable risk profit target, enable stop loss. Well, you could do something like maybe enable a 2% stop loss but go for a 6% profit target. So we're risking 1 unit to make 3 units. Or you could risk 1% to make 3. It's up to you. Advanced, this is how we can determine how many days we want to go back and sample. Let's just go back and sample, say 45 trading days. We can go up to 3 months on the calendar. And then the summary gives us an idea of how we're going to run this between what times of days, stop out, risk management. Since this is a long strategy, all we got to do is click Simulate Buy. And the beginnings of the backtesting module basically goes back and says, okay, what would happen if every time an alert came out of this window, the trader purchased that and held onto it for, say, 60 minutes. And it's going to chew through every single trade that came through prior to the 45 days. Now, what's great about this tool is not only is it the tool that Holli uses, and we'll touch on that a little bit, but it can be a great tool to let us know as traders whether or not this is even a viable strategy. Sometimes, you know, we might think we have a great strategy and the backtester comes back and it's just a downward sloping equity loss in your account that says there's really nothing here. And to be quite honest, you shouldn't be disappointed or sad or upset. You know, maybe your ego's a little bruised that it didn't work out the way you wanted, but essentially the backtester is telling you the strategy that you thought was a decent strategy is in fact not a strategy. You should probably go back to the drawing board. Or maybe we'll find something that has, you know, a decent direction going in the right direction, and we can try and work on optimizing a couple of different ways. Maybe the time of day that we buy, or maybe the different filters that we're using. But we're getting close here. As soon as we get to 100, we'll have a summary that we can look at and basically get an idea of how well this particular strategy might work. And again, this is what our AI, artificial intelligence, Holli is built on. And Holli is able to do about over 1 million backtest, 1 million sample practice trades every evening for different types of strategies. So as I suspected, we're not really getting a great return on this strategy. The strategy is going down for the most part. But without getting too in-depth, that's just the first step. The second step is we can come in here and optimize, and we can look at the pricing and say, well, this particular strategy didn't work very well unless the price was between $0 and $10. There's some green in there. That's interesting to note. Time of day also could show us some interesting ideas. The time of day looks like maybe the later portion of the day might be the better way to go, and again on the price, maybe 0 to 9 might be the better way to go. I'm just going to leave it at that because this is one giant rabbit hole that you can go down, trust me, in terms of trying to rejigger price or time of day or other filters that you can measure against. So this is just a real quick overview of how to use the backtester. Did I miss anything there, Andy? Even though
No, very good, and you're so true. I mean, it's a powerful piece of software, and that you just have to spend some time with it. I mean, we'd have to go a whole nother hour here if we wanted to. I did want to ask you a question though, Steve, because we created that new high close to 10-day breakout, and I like that. How can I save that to my cloud? What would I do?
Yeah, if I was to just click this X right here, I'd kind of be screwed because I didn't save it. The first thing you're going to want to do, make a habit of, is once you've made a new alert or a configuration that you may want to come back and work on, give it a title that you can recognize so you can locate it, and then right-click Save to Cloud. Now it's in my cloud and I don't need to worry about it. If I wanted to share it with Andy and say, hey Andy, let's work on this together, I could say, all right, save and share, and then it gives me the cloud to copy. Now that's in my clipboard. I could just go to an email or a chat window and right-click paste, and then once Andy has that right-click paste, essentially you just go and load from cloud, and it should be right there waiting for you. Just like that.
Oh, very
so
good.
The cloud is a great feature. Let's do a little exercise here. First of all, let's make sure that we can add to the single stock window. The one thing that I really like to add are a couple of items that I don't see on there. I like to know what the float is. What's the float of a stock? Highlight, show column. Okay. I also like to know what is the short float of a stock. Let's add that column. I also like to know, as we said earlier, what is the 5-minute volume of a stock. 5-minute volume, show column. Click OK. Now we've got the data points I'm looking for, my 5-minute volume. I've got my short float and my float. I could go on to add average daily volume if that's not on there. But this, you guys, as we go through and double click, is a great way to see what's going on. 5-minute volume, nothing really special there, nothing really special there. That true stock we were looking at earlier. 5-minute volume is 104% of that true It's that stock that we marked up earlier. That could be interesting to keep an eye on. But these are very easy to add. Any data point you might be interested in, if you want to know what position it is in the Bollinger Band, you can grab that and show column as well. So the single stock window is your friend, because as you double click through items, especially on a top list, we can get some great data points. All right.
Okay. One other question, Steve.
Yep.
I noticed in the beginning that all you have is open trades. Is there a way for me to see the open and closed trades in Holli in one window, or?
Yeah, let's do that. So this is a great segue to move on to Holli. Since we've realized what backtesting is, and we've realized what this particular one is, it's an alert called new 10-day highs. Well, essentially in Holli, the parent window, these are the names of the alerts. Now, these alerts, mind you, have probably gone through extensive backtesting, and many of them probably have 20 to 25 different filters that keep too many trades from coming through, and those filters were created by the artificial intelligence and the machine learning of Holli every evening, going through about 40 different strategies that we have. The strategies that make the final cut are the ones that are going to show up here in the parent window. Now, the second window below, which, by the way, if you lose this window, let's go ahead and lose that window, you can get it back by right-clicking and say View All Trades. And that's going to bring us back to the exact same window we had before, which, of course, I had set to open. Now, Andy's question is, I see you have open trades there. How can I view the closed trades? Well, we can switch to closed and just view the closed trades, or we can turn both of them off and have both open and closed trades, or we can go back to the way the Holli channel originally had it, and we can just add another view all trades and make this our closed trades window and just have basically one for each, so to speak. All right.
Okay.
Holli, the AI, I think, is a very interesting tool, and we look at it as a sophisticated tool because it's really nothing more than an alert window, but happens to have really good statistical probabilities, anywhere from 60 to 75%, or profit factors anywhere from 2 on up to 4 or 5 or 6. And that is what makes the AI very interesting, is being able to determine, which strategies should be working and which strategies should not be working. I will quickly also mention, because it's always going to give us a lot of questions, what is the difference between risk on and risk off? You'll see there's a histogram here that says risk on, and if we click it, it goes to risk off. Well, right now they're pretty close. Risk on is up $1.04, risk off is up 92. The simplest answer I can give you is using the columns here. The risk on column is basically these trades are still open, are going to stay open until the close. So the risk is going to stay on until the close. If I double click and sort this column, the risk off means that Holli has already taken an exit. So you'll see an entry price and you'll see an exit price. And that means the risk off is computed off of Holli's entry and exit. Risk on is computed by Holli's entrance and where the price currently is on the risk on. So that's the simplicity of risk on, risk off. On a day where there is a nice trending broad-based rally, risk on usually winds up doing a lot better than risk off. On a day when there's back and forth, red to green, green to red, market uncertainty, market noise, the quick shots, the quick in and outs of risk off are going to be a little bit more outer performance than the risk on. Again, highlight, right-click, columns. There are many columns that you can add that you may or may not want to see to either the parent window or the open or closed trades window.
Go back to that, Steve. I'm telling them something they're going to want to see that's not in the Holli channel. I'm not sure why, but you're going to want to see those top two on the right, the winning percentage and the profit factor. So if you can move those over to the and profit factor, because when you come in the morning and doing your research, you definitely want to see what the winning percentage.
This is how I do it right there. I like to move the winning percentage, the profit factor, and then I've got it all in a row. Double click. Okay. Last night, topping formation is a short strategy tested at 74.4 win percentage with a profit factor of 3.99. Just below that, it looks like the shorts really tested the best last night for whatever reason. Interesting. and they've actually had a couple of decent trades today as well. So great point, Andy, and you can notice there's room here that you can add more columns if you would like to add more columns. It's up to you. I'll leave that open. But maximizing and customizing your own custom layout is the way to go. Now, we've done a little bit of work here, guys. Probably a really good habit to do something, and that is go up and click File, Save Layout as default layout. I'm not going to do that because this isn't my default layout, but that's what you guys are going to want to do, and keep making a habit of making that your default layout. Now, again, go ahead. Did you
Oh
have a
no,
question?
yeah, it's very good point. Very good point. Well, let me ask you this, Steve. I noticed a pre-market channel. Is that pretty effective in the morning if I want to come in and like kind of get an idea of what's happening in the morning?
Yeah, and you'll notice we just left our default layout, so that's why you want to change it. We've got a window for gapping up and a window for gapping down. What you'll notice is we're highlighting, we're sorting by gap. So these columns are now basically frozen for the day. But pre-market, these are going to be very active, and they're going to show you which ones are getting ready to gap up, which ones are getting ready to gap down. We also have one here that's showing us pre-market activity, which one's showing high relative volume in the pre-market, which one's moving up quickly in pre-market, or new pre-market highs or new pre-market lows. Popular channel to hang out on, but again, if you don't want to hang out, and if you like me and Andy and you don't want to just sit on these channels all day, we want to get back to Holli, the AI, and our other stuff. Not to mention, I can go in here and click configure, but it doesn't mean I'm going to be able to change anything and make it stick, because these channels are static and everybody gets the same configuration. There's no making changes stick on a channel. But here's the workaround. We really want this in our repertoire, in our wheelhouse. Well, let's grab pre-market movers, right-click it, and save to cloud. Save to cloud. All right. Let's return to our default layout. Load layout. Load default layout. And you know what? I really did.
You did. I noticed that you did it. I didn't want to say anything at the time because it's too late. But
well, it's okay because
you know how to go find it.
I've got my layout in the cloud, which is
good.
a great way to show you that right now. If you go to save and load from cloud, I can find my layout by typing layout. It looks like the last time I did that was about a month ago, but I can still bring up the stuff that I know that I want and I like in my cloud. Bringing back to our explanation, pre-market, we loaded that pre-market channel the way I had it. So let's go back and load from cloud, and you'll notice there it is, pre-market movers, load, and there it is. So we can go to any, might as well just save layout as we've got it as default layout. And then let's go to the social media channel. We can see what StockTwits is talking about. StockTwits is connected to trade ideas, and we can see how many times a symbol is being mentioned versus normally. So what is the crowd, what is the mob talking about? Well, this could be an interesting one that you might want to save. Save to cloud, and then go back and load layout, which is my new default layout because I'm going to have to create my old one. And then we can right-click and load from layout, and there is the social media mentions. So this is a way in which you can slowly start to go through and build your custom layout. You may get some stuff from us in webinars, you may get some stuff from Barry in the live trading room, but that's the gist of using the cloud to share. Now, if I wanted to make a cloud copy of this and go log in and download trade ideas at my place of office or my work, I can load trade ideas, and then I can say, well, I want to save this layout to my cloud. So I would see right-click. I'm not going to do it because it'll overwrite it, but I could say, excuse me.
You did load from cloud, yeah.
Yeah, I do. Save to cloud. I could click entire layout, and you'll see it's checking everything I've got open, and then it names it layout. But I'm not going to click save because I want to go back to my old layout, but that's the instructions for you guys to create a layout in your cloud that you might find that you like to use going forward. Many channels, many great places to find information. I can't emphasize enough, once again, using the price alerts. The price alerts are a great feature for keeping track of stocks that you set and triggered, and keeping tracks of stocks that you want to keep an eye on that are still working. So that's about all I can think of really that we talk about really in a main one-on-one session. If you're having any trouble with your connections, definitely check account, see what your connection says. If you're behind a firewall, you can go to Tools and Options, and you can double click on connection and take it from a primary to maybe a secure mode or a new HTTPS mode. There's one more thing that's real interesting that I'll quickly show you is the external linking function. Basically, right-click, left-click external linking. If you add a link, you just follow this wizard, which basically says take your arrow and move it over to your trading platform, and then click the shift window. And the shift window should link your platform along with trade ideas. So at the point when you get there and you double-click things, not only will your trade ideas windows change, but also your brokerage platform or charting platform will change for you as well.
Exactly. And to add to that, we do have a drop-down box that lists several of the major brokers that you'll have to put in. Steve will show you here where you can actually have rules for. And I actually think you have to link it first to do it. Does that drop-down work? No, I think you'd have to have a.
Yep. So there you
yep.
go.
There you go. There it is. So you can look down and see, find your broker and just highlight and just set it in that drop-down box after you link it.
Very good.
All right.
Well, I'm trying to think of some other of the most common questions. I think we've touched on them most. Oh, look, there's an alert that just went off. It looks like that's what happens. When an alert goes off, it's going to pop up in your face. And that's how easy that is to be alerted to stuff that you want to come to you in real time.
I'm glad that happened. That shows you right there that you can actually keep your alert window minimized, and it will actually pop up, and the alert will flash yellow to let you know that it went off. So you don't have to keep it and use up valuable real estate. So you can keep it minimized.
Exactly. So please don't forget to sign up for the one-on-one training. We can take it from there, but hopefully this would be a great starting point for you all in unboxing trade ideas. If you have any questions, info@trade-ideas.com. You can include screenshots or questions, and your email will be routed to the correct person, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. But I hope you enjoyed this basic, getting started video, and we look forward to seeing you in the live trading room and or the one-on-ones. So without further ado, have a good day, good luck, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, everybody.